Welcome back to another exciting trip around the crypto canaverse. Today we are featuring DSV, a decentralized AI fund, the Estate PLLC, and Arcadia. DSV Fund is dedicated to superior capital growth through strategic digital asset investments. They prioritize investment security with a regulated fund structure and employ a strategic approach grounded in diversification, risk management, and fundamental analysis. The Estate PLLC is a private client law firm specializing in estate planning, asset protection, and business transactions. It focuses particularly on high risk companies such as crypto and blockchain industries and emphasizes wealth preservation, tax efficiency, and privacy. Arcadia is a leading Web3 firm that has helped brands raise over 250 million and manages a portfolio of over 50 billion. They excel in community building, strategic advisory, and influencer marketing, making them the go-to for scaling Web3 brands. But before we introduce our speakers, let's welcome Alan and Jacob Livingood. Hey guys.
Hello, hello. I'll go ahead and read the scripture today. This is spoken from the Apostle Paul. It comes from 1 Corinthians 9, 24 and 25. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. I want to ask you, Mickey, you actually chose this scripture for the week. This was your choice. I want to ask why you chose this and what this means to you.
Yeah, I chose it because I am a person of devout faith, and I'm also a capitalist. And I think I think the two can be conflicting. But I think that if you use scripture, you can really operate a business and a company and just go out and really strive for dominance, while abiding by the principles of the Bible. And so this verse is really cool because it really just like invigorates me. Like if you're going to do something, why would you do it if you're going to come in second place? But you can also do it in a way that reflects the word of God and the commandments, etc. So sort of touches on both ethos of morality and just being a capitalist and running a business.
Amen. And I want to pass it over to Alan.
Thank you, Mickey, for choosing this Bible verse and how it resonates to you and what it means to you. I totally agree with you. The translation, what this means to me, is like very similar to what you said. It's a powerful metaphor for spiritual dedication and perseverance. It emphasizes the importance of discipline, self-control, striving for a lasting eternal reward, abiding by the word, in all things that you do, encourages us to prioritize our spiritual goals, cultivate self-discipline, and pursue eternal rewards, which is eternal life with God. So all things that we do, we are putting God first and putting him in the center of all things that we do. So couldn't agree more with what you said. Thank you, Jake and Mickey, for picking this Bible verse.
One last thing I'd like to add as well. It's part of common doctrine that's taught in today's, religious teachings, is that being a righteous individual and being a capitalist seeking, achieving something largely on the worldly scale are mutually exclusive, when in fact they are not mutually exclusive events. They can coincide together. So that's what this is calling us to. You can be a competitor and be great at what you do, but you can also be righteous about it and act in faith and do right on those around you. Amen.
Amen.
Do we have any other comments on our Bible verse today before we move on? No? Okay, for our announcements, we are putting on a pitch event for women founders within Web3, blockchain, crypto industries, and we are looking for sponsorships and advisors to help them along their journey. If you would like to be part of this, please reach out to info@cryptocanaverse.com. And we are shooting for February 2024, depending on things like the election and the market conditions. We will see how that goes. Kenny, can you talk about our upcoming speakers? You are on mute.
You are on mute.
There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so yes, I will talk about our upcoming speakers. Give you guys the dates, and I'm really excited about a couple of these. This is going to be cool going into the holiday season. But on November 15th, which will be our next show, we are going to have Sam Hayer from Get Oliver AI on. AI is not only a growing trend and topic inside the crypto space, but in the investing and tech spaces at large. So Get Oliver AI is kind of at the intersection of application-specific AI and the growing trend of decentralized processing. So we're gonna have that'll be a really neat, especially if you're a tech nerd like myself. That'll be a great show, and Sam is a great. He's great at kind of breaking down complex concepts. So I think that everyone will enjoy that. Also, we've got coming up on December the 6th, we're going to have Julie Dilley, I hope I pronounced that properly, the founder of Prayer App, and as well as Martin Samuel, a movie director and founder of Begin Films Festival, and Pastor Blake Bush, the first tokenized church, One Hope of Colorado. So this is going to be very interesting because we're going to be moving across the applications of blockchain technology in entertainment, but also in social structures, and in this case, social religious structures like a church. And I think that's a really interesting concept and something that I personally haven't got to delve real deep into or discuss on any high level. So these will all be very interesting shows. I hope you guys will attend, and that's what we have coming up.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you, Kenny. I'm sorry, was there a question?
No, I said thank you. Thank you, Kenny.
Well, thank you, Alan, for saying thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's welcome our first guest speaker, Mr. Bob O'Brien, CCO of DSV Fund. Welcome, Bob.
Hi, Crystal. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. My name is Bob O'Brien. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at DSV Fund. DSV Fund is a crypto digital asset fund focusing mainly on AI, decentralized AI. And then prior to that, just a little background, FalconX, CEO of Uphold, and then TradFi for 20 years.
Wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about where you are in the process of the DSV fund launching and what kinds of partnerships or advisors, investors that you're seeking?
Great, perfect. Well, thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, so DSV Fund, we have a Bohemian license, so we just got licensed about a month and a half ago. So we are ready to go now with institutional investors. We are only for institutional investors and are qualified investors from that standpoint. We're a regulated digital asset fund. Focusing on, as I mentioned, the digital asset space and mostly on the kind of AI stuff that's going on. The objectives of the fund, different hedge fund, if you don't know what that is, different from a mutual fund. In a hedge fund setting, we're allowed to short, so we can trade around positions and stuff like that to capitalize as when kind of the market moves around. And so let's a little bit about our mission. So we're investing in digital assets only. We're trying to achieve high performance with just kind of a small amount of tokens that we're going to buy. I mean, we're looking for venture capital kind of returns off this. It's not going to be like when you're in the digital asset space, it's more about kind of risk reward from that standpoint. And the strategy is fundamental from that standpoint, although we will trade around from time to time on technicals to short stuff. But that's kind of the basis of the fund.
Beautiful, Bob. So just a few questions here for me, starting off. So when you say AI based in the crypto space, does that mean, I mean, like, can you give us a little more definition as to what that's going to do? Is that just strictly AIs, specifically application specific AIs? Do you guys move into like DePIN, like, you know, decentralized infrastructure, or any of that type of stuff? That's kind of inside that, or yeah, could you define that a little bit for us?
Sure, sure. So when you think about AI from a crypto standpoint, you're talking about decentralized AI, and that's compared to kind of say NVIDIA. And the funny thing is, when you look at a company like NVIDIA, which is hardware, which generally should have a market cap lower than anything software because of margins, it's a $3 trillion market cap. NVIDIA is basically bigger than Meta and Amazon combined, right? So if we kind of look and we peel back and we go, okay, kind of what's going on here and what's going on in the digital asset space. So if you look at the meme coins, I think Doge is a $25 billion market cap. So one of the tokens we're looking at is a protocol called Bitensor, and the ticker or the token name is TAO, TAO. So why do we think this is fundamentally different and what's going on from that standpoint, right? So when you break it down and you look at what's going on, Bitensor is really like it's really like an umbrella or an incubator, right? So from an AI standpoint, what it does is you sign on to the Bitensor platform instead of going to say a VC, and people globally can look at your models and basically work on your models globally. So why is that different from Microsoft's investment in OpenAI? Well, OpenAI and Sam Altman, it's only the engineers that work at OpenAI that can work on OpenAI. It's only the engineers at Google that can work on Gemini. So therefore, you can't get a kind of a true grasp of what's going on, and then they can kind of dictate how they want the ship to be pointed. So that's kind of the difference between what we're looking at when we look at kind of a project on the AI side, decentralized, open sourced, so anyone can work on it. And then we look at the capital efficiency side in the sense that you don't have to go to a VC. You can go to a protocol, an umbrella, and basically get seeded. And then if your models are good, you get compensated through emissions. So it's a really interesting process. And just wanted to kind of, from that standpoint, in a fund that's just starting, explain what one of our top investments would be.
Okay, beautiful. So you guys are really focusing heavily on the decentralized AIs, because when you say AI fund, you know, I operate and kind of work with several different AI funds, but that can mean extremely different things, right?
Yeah.
So you guys are looking at decentralization. So is there also interest in the DePIN side, or the decentralized processing power to run these AIs? Is that anything that you guys are interested in? Because that's becoming very quickly a super powerful narrative in the last, you know, several months. So is that something you guys are looking into as well?
Not at this point. You know, there's companies like Render and stuff like that where work with NVIDIA and everything. We think the software space is the space we want to be, because we like the open sourceness of it and that people can work on it globally. And quite frankly, the margins are better in software than they are in hardware. You don't have to hire all these PhDs. You don't have to worry about shipping wafers or anything else that's going on. It's a different model. You write the software, and if it works, it's great.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bob, for all of that. Can you give us a few details on just the like brass tacks of the fund? Like, do you have a because you're raising right now currently?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay. Do you have numbers as far as like the size of the fund and you know, what allocation you guys are at so far? Just some more details in that arena.
Great. Yeah. So we do have skin in the game. We've put just a little bit shy of 2 million worth of TAO into the fund at this point, and that is partner money. From that standpoint, we think we can get to 10 easily, and we think that if you just look at what I said about market cap earlier, if you look at a $3 trillion market cap with NVIDIA, which is hardware, and we talked about the shortcomings of hardware, versus a $3 billion market cap, or just shy of $4 billion for TAO, if you even have 1% of NVIDIA, you're looking at, you know, a 30x return.
Perfect. Beautiful. So one of the things, I mean, obviously this is not financial advice of any kind or
No.
you know that we're doing here, but so I'd always like to ask you know, fund managers and different funds that I'm talking to. So what was the thought process in going into the decentralized AI sector versus, you know, the dozens of other sectors that are considered to be hot right now? So what was the thought process and the kind of investment thesis that you guys had to land on the AI, the decentralized AI investment fund?
Yeah, yes, I do want to qualify. This is not investment advice, and you know, returns will fluctuate and everything else from that standpoint, and it is only for qualified investors. But I think what it boils down to when you kind of cross everything out from line to line to public to private, I think when you're dealing with something that's open sourced and decentralized, it's really unbelievably powerful, and it's completely misunderstood and mispriced from a standpoint of the way that people look at public markets. I mean, when you're looking at companies that are, so here's a few companies underneath the Potenza umbrella that and what they're doing. They're working on cancer research. One of them is working on, which is really interesting, in deep fakes. In other words, I don't know if you guys have this, but I have a couple of things that are my voice is my password. Well, now you can clone my voice. So this thing can basically tell if you have a cloned voice and a cloned face, so no one can kind of steal your assets, right? Gaming they're working on, sports betting, fraud protection. There's so, just if you could think of an AI thing, and I can post the website that we've kind of taken. This 52 companies total underneath this umbrella right now, and we think they can get to a total of 500 companies at some point. So when we look at it, I would say the open sourceness is, and the fact that people can work on this globally is and how big this actually can get.
Well, and that highlights another great, I mean, point that that we should note is that when you're talking about open source software and you're talking about layers of building on top of it, it's almost like investing in a single entity and having the benefits of a diversified portfolio, right? Because you're also investing in medical research, in security research, in gaming, and all these different things that AIs are utilized in, because we all know that AIs have a almost unimaginable area of use case across, you know, all these different industries. So that's really great. I appreciate it, Bob, so much. I'll shut up. If anyone else has any other questions for Bob, please go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question for some investors. They typically will ask, like, in a newer fund, and you mentioned about going long on positions, and also you'll have some satellite positions that go short. Like, what would you say the when portfolio management or percentages of shorts that you will do compared to the overall fund? That's one question. And then the second question would be, are you guys going to be utilizing any type of leverage that will be incorporated into your portfolio management?
Yeah, those are great questions. So for leverage standpoint, no. So there's no reason to use that. The basic premise of the fund is the ability to recognize projects that are out there that are undervalued. So from that standpoint, you know, we don't think leverage is needed. And from the short standpoint, it's really only to basically use against, say, macro events, right? So we would just use it to pick up some type of yield along the lines. And I'll mention, as I mentioned, this particular project, Potenza, and we talked about, it's an umbrella and it's an incubator and 52 companies underneath it. But it's also it also has a very, very large staking yield. So the staking yield is currently around 16%. So basically, what would happen is you basically, the way we feel is you start on second base, right? And so if it remains, if the token, and it's crypto and it's high beta, so if the token remains somewhat stable, you pick up 16% in yield just on staking rewards. And one of the things is it's also not readily available at most places. So it can't really, in the States, you can't, it's tough to get and stuff from that standpoint. But that all adds to the fact that there's, we think there's big upside in the name.
Okay, thank you.
Just to have one question from my side. I know you guys are developing, yield strategies in your fund. Have you folks ever considered looking into Bitcoin miners as a product for yield placement?
We haven't looked into Bitcoin miners. At my prior firm, I did a lot with Bitcoin and Cas miners. From that Caspa with a K, from that standpoint, the fund is only a month and a half old, and we're just trying to get everything done from a seeding perspective and get it up and running. But who's to say that that wouldn't be a strategy? But I'm very familiar with that stuff and think I think it's great.
Excellent. Well, maybe you and I can chat some other time about some more details.
Of course. Thanks for bringing it up.
For sure.
So I have a sorry, Kenneth.
No, you go ahead, Jake. Go ahead.
All right. So you're functioning as the CCO of DSV. What are the other founders? What's their background, and what are some characteristics that you feel as a founder that are something that will entice other investors to get involved in the fund?
Sure. So the team is pretty diverse, and I'm really excited about the team. So the CIO is ex-Royal Air Force in England. It's obviously a very, very stand-up-ish guy who basically out of the Air Force started kind of trading around FX and stuff like that. So and he's run a couple different funds, more I would say family office type of funds, meaning guys seated him and said, listen, let me give you $1 million, can you just trade it for me and do whatever you do. So from that standpoint, he hasn't run a public facing fund like this one, but he's done a lot of investment and there's a track record for that. The other guys are all senior and have been around finance for a very long time. They're all in their 40s or 50s and have been CEOs and or involved in kind of funds or fund raising for a very, very long time. Rob is on the phone here, who is the CFO of CSV. He's worked as a tax accountant advisory since 2002. He's been involved in finance and the buy side for a long time.
Awesome. And you mentioned the Tau umbrella has 52 companies. Was this all facilitated in the last month and a half?
No. So Tau has been around for quite some time. You can find it on Coin. You can't find it on Coinbase, but you can find it on Bybit. It trades on Binance and it trades on all the other exchanges. It's been around for a while. I would say I think last Easter it had around 32, so 20 more projects. And the advantages is pretty simple instead. So say if you're a bunch of AI engineers and you want to start up a company, right? You can go get some VC money and get diluted, or you can come into the Potenza umbrella and if you get started in there and your model works, you'll get emissions rewards. And if you get 1% of the rewards, that could be as much as 20 grand a week. So you really can get going. So you think of it, when I mention umbrella or incubator or YC, it truly is a YC, right? Now you can go and buy this directly, which is great. I'm happy to give you our ideas, and I'm happy to spread the word because I think this project is so worth it. Or we'll have other things going on from that perspective. But it is completely unique, and it's very, very misunderstood from the standpoint of people just shy away from anything on the crypto side and think there's not utility under the hood. It's a bunch of coins with dogs and frogs on them and goats.
All right, appreciate it, Bob. So we're gonna be mindful of time here and get on to the next subject here. But Bob, really quickly, if we have any of our audience listening live now or in the week to come as we run some of the clips and run the show through, if we have anyone interested in getting involved with that fund, how can they do that, and where can they make contact for those investments?
Sure. So like I mentioned, qualified investors only, dsvfund.com. Or my email would be bob@dsvfund.com or hello@dsvfund.com. And if they go to DSV Fund, there's right on there, they can go into a questionnaire or say, how can I help? And it'll come right to us.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'll throw it
Kenny,
back.
before we move on, I just want to clarify, Bob, you guys are looking for investors for the fund, not for the company or for equity or anything like that, correct?
We're looking for investors for the fund. What my point was to bring up one of the investments that we think is going to, which we wanted to be our largest investment. So basically give you an idea of kind of what we're looking at and the way we look at it.
Okay, can you go ahead and do that?
I did. The Potensor one in Tau is the kind of investment we're looking at. That's so we have DSV fund, and our largest investment will be Potensor Tau. So I wanted to talk through the way we think about stuff and why we're looking at open source, decentralized, and as opposed to hardware or anything else.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to close with?
No, I think that's about it. I think I gave you everything from that perspective. Obviously, I have other investments, but I just wanted to share. I thought sharing our largest investment would give you an idea of the way we're thinking about the world.
Yeah. Fun fact, Bob, I was actually involved with Tau when they first opened for beta testing. I led a group of developers that did beta testing, and we actually got a allocation of the token for doing a bunch of testing. I love the whole what would you call it, the utility of it, and at that point in time they had just started onboarding some of the projects that were being built on top of it. But even the 6 or 7 that we dealt with as we were doing some of the beta testing, it was really a great concept and very fluid. So yeah, just a funny thing that yeah.
Great. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you, Bob. Do we have any other questions from our panelists or speakers for Bob? Mickey, go ahead.
Yeah, just super quick. I know we're trying to move quickly, but I was just sort of interested. Like obviously you're operating in like a very hot market in AI, and you're also, you know, US based in the Valley, right? Doing this properly compliantly. How has that been over like your lifetime in Web3 and crypto, watching regulation and the regulatory regime process? Like, are you bullish on that? Do we need more clarification? Like, where is your guys' heads at? How do you navigate that? Because I feel like it's super interesting, and like even myself, I deal with it all the time, right?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question, Mickey. You know, the regulatory thing is obviously a wild card from that standpoint. The fund is Bohemian based, so it is offshore. And one of the reasons why that is the case is because staking is still a little bit difficult here in the States and could be considered an issue. So we talked about staking yields currently 16%. So from that standpoint, it makes more sense to do it offshore. Rob, who's on this call, who's the CFO, I'm the only one in the States. The other guys are all in England. As far as regulation here in the States, I feel like we pretty much know how to operate a business and stay between the lines a little bit. I know everyone talks about a gray area, but being in TradFi for a long, long time, I kind of know where to go and where not to go, right? And from that standpoint, as long as you stay kind of compliant from that and don't go completely crazy and do stuff that you think that the regulators have to basically come to you and say, explain what you're doing, just do it the way things are done in a public market, I think you're totally fine. And that leaves a lot of leeway for you to kind of run a company. If you just sit there and go, I need more clarity, you're never going to get anything done.
Great questions. Well, thank you for being here, Bob. We appreciate you. Let's welcome our next speakers, Mark Ghatan and Clayton Cruse, managing partners of the estate. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello. I'm Mark.
So please take a minute to introduce yourself and tell us about the estate PLLC.
Take it away, Mark.
Sure. So I'm Mark Ghatan. I'm a lawyer who practices in a lot of different areas, and with a focus right now on estate planning, asset protection, and tax mitigation. We kind of handle the tougher cases that are out there, and as we kind of focus on crypto. So deal with fund managers, project sponsors, and anyone with kind of low cost basis assets. to find the right solutions for them.
Clayton, would you like to add to that?
And that can, like what Mark said, that can include things like tax mitigation, but also on the other side, asset protection. Because like Bob was talking about, their fund is offshore. So a lot of, especially project founders, I mean, hedge fund founders that are operating in this space, the US is pretty tricky market for regulation and just an overall umbrella of getting into trouble, finding yourself in a spot where you didn't even know a rule or a law existed that you could get in trouble for. So we actually do quite a bit of offshore work, helping protect the assets of founders or investors, early adopters, helping protect their assets from a regulatory scheme that is muddy at best. So just keeping those assets safe that you worked so hard to earn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How did you guys meet?
How did we meet, Mark? So
Magic.
we both work.
Or Cadabra.
Huh?
He said they met through magic.
Oh yeah.
Magic wand, you know?
It does at times feel a little bit divine. Yeah, it's very strange. But we worked for another company, didn't know each other prior, but worked for another law firm, helping them because we had crypto experience and estate planning and asset protection experience, which apparently is not very common, the combination of the two and how they work together. So we both worked for that law firm, and one thing led to another, and now we run the estate together.
Okay, Kenny has a question, but before we move on to Kenny, I just want to know, what is one characteristic that you admire about the other?
Go for it.
I would say just how similar we are to being laid back and the can-do attitude that I think Clayton has, that nothing really phases him, and it's all like, all right, let's sit down and figure out what to do and how, what the path forward is.
Yeah. I told Crystal the other day that I admire Mark's ability to completely check out at times. And that might sound bad, but with what we do and the hours that a lot of times we have to put in, it is a trait that I wish I had. I have a really difficult time turning off. It's just go, go, go until I fall asleep for the most part. So the ability to actually say, we got to stop and do something else because we have a life outside of this, that is something that I admire a lot.
So what Clayton is saying is that Mark is great for our marriage.
Yeah, exactly.
You're welcome.
All right, Mark, you're
Indirectly.
a keeper. Kenny, you have a question.
I do. I'm going to ask you guys probably your favorite question that you never get from anybody else in the industry, right? So let's talk about what the regulatory landscape looks like currently and what you guys think that's going to look like over the coming next couple of years. Okay, I'm sure you guys never get asked that, but this is the reason why I bring up this, because we have seen in recent weeks and months different cases being brought against several layers of different projects inside of the space. Consensus is a great example, with MetaMask and Consensus having SEC dealings going on right now. We just found out a couple days ago that Immutable X got a letter from the SEC talking about potentially having a security when they issued their token. So you have that on one side, and then on the other side, we see obviously the Bitcoin ETFs being approved. We see BlackRock and State Street and all these guys piling into Bitcoin ETFs, Ethereum ETFs. Now we're talking very heavily about Solana and potentially Ripple ETFs. So it's like it almost looks like there's a certain portion of the market that is being adopted by the major hedge funds and governments, and there's still a portion that seems to be getting attacked pretty heavily. So do you guys have any insight into what you think, maybe what the reasoning is behind that, and then maybe where that's going, in the next 12 months to 5 years? What do you guys see?
Oh, like for what we do, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it really doesn't matter. Like because what we're protecting against is something that could happen regardless of the industry you're in. But we have to plan for it a little bit differently than you would. So say you were a real estate investor. It's really not a lot different. It's just the way that you have to plan for it is different because, if you're a real estate investor, you have houses that are on the ground. And I mean, not much you can do about that. I mean, for somebody who say is a Bitcoin investor and has 1,000 Bitcoin, for instance, how do you plan for that? I mean, that's where it gets to be difficult, is navigating the how, not so much the what. And I guess from that standpoint, the regulations do have a little bit of an impact, but not a lot. With that being said, we do a lot of stuff that's not asset protection based that does have, some of those aspects in it. So the regulatory market, long story short, the regulatory market is so uncertain. Why they are approving some of the ETFs that they are, the only thing I can say is pure speculation, is they're so large that they can't really go anywhere, and they're taking advantage of their size. I don't really know what else it could. There might be other reasons that I don't know about, but that's what you see is all these people that said, "Oh, well, Bitcoin's terrible." Now Bitcoin is so big, it's a juggernaut, and it's not going anywhere. So the people who were saying that it was so bad before are now heavily invested into it. I mean, the financial institutions that were putting it down are now, they're the backbone of it in a lot of cases.
Very true.
And it's different for every country. Every country has a different landscape. I can't really speak of others, but in the US, it's still pretty gray. And I think it's even going to be that way after the election, regardless of which way that goes. I don't see, it's not going to be an easy of a process as people are making it out to be. Oh, if Trump wins, he's pro crypto, or if Kamala wins, she doesn't like it. I don't think it's going to be that simple. It's going to be a much more drawn out process, because the US, the way that it operates in a lot of their laws, it's not necessarily black and white. It's up for interpretation, and a lot of the interpretations are quite old, and they don't really fit the market. So they're going to have to change and add a lot of stuff, and that takes quite a lot of time.
I appreciate that answer, Clayton, for sure. Jake, go ahead.
Yeah, so you mentioned asset protection, estate planning, strategic advisory. So is there like a certain sub niche? What I'm trying to ask, right, is like, so you mentioned real estate, and is there, like, obviously there's key distinctions and differences between real estate and other things such as a blockchain founder. Is there, like, what are some of those core distinctions? And also, it's more of a personal question, is there a certain sub niche or industry or type of founder that you personally prefer to work with over another?
Go for it, Mark.
Yeah, so I would say really just any kind of founder, whatever industry it is, someone who's a visionary and kind of saw something and put their heart and soul into a business, whatever way it is. Those are my kind of favorite clients, because they're heavily invested. They're smart, they get it, they follow along, and they're just great clients to work with. As far as what is different between, like real estate and crypto and all that, I would say there's risks everywhere. There's a lot of similarities. Real estate and crypto is kind of dealt as the same way as far as the IRS understands it. It's property. So there's some fundamental things that are very similar. The big difference is kind of what a lot of Clayton was just speaking about. Crypto has a lot of regulatory risk. So you have a higher chance of having regulators come down on you for what you might be doing. Real estate, it's been around for a long time. You kind of know what the risks are. You know what to do to avoid those risks, and you know what the penalties would be if you did it. But we have a patchwork system. There's the CFTC, there's the SEC, there's FTC, there's all these different regulators that approach it kind of differently. And piggybacking on the last question also, I kind of where I see regulatory going is, it'll be a slow churn, but there's no turning back. I think those ETFs, BlackRock getting involved, pretty much every major financial institution, Microsoft now considering putting BTC on their treasury. It's here to stay. So at some point or another, it might not be the next 1 or 2 years, but I think after this round right now of candidates that we have, I think we'll see a new generation of leaders who are a little bit more hit to this industry and will really want to kind of implement some change. There's enough moneyed interest to do that at this point.
Another question is sort of a two wombo combo.
Wait, Jacob, could you hold on one moment before we move on? Let's hop on over to Mr. O'Brien.
Thanks. Sorry, Jacob. So one quick question I have, just talking about, and you might not know the answer to this, but from a timeline perspective. So let's say there is a flip in the presidential side. I know that SEC and FTC chairman have to go through a congressional panel. So would you say like over under June of 25 is when you get because someone has to be nominated, then they have to be questioned in front of Congress, and then they have to be sworn in. So if something does flip in next Tuesday, is June the earliest that you could get Gensler and Lina Khan out?
I think it depends on the outcome. I think if one side wins, it's going to be a slow burn. If the other side wins, it's going to happen. Stuff's going to start happening quickly. I think the turnover will be faster than what you can prepare for in some cases. So I mean, I don't think it's crazy to say June, July. But as far as seeing actual change made, that's the question. Because you can get a new person in tomorrow, but how long is it going to take before the policies or ideas that group has, how long is it going to be before it takes effect?
Yeah, I mean, these are massive organizations. So, there's career people who are at SEC right now that there's committees working on this all the time, and they still haven't figured out anything. So you're going to have lots of people kind of with conflicting ideas, and I wouldn't be surprised if it takes 2 years after you get a new person in charge at the helm to see any like substantial proposals that could even be voted on. There's public comment periods and all that are baked into the law that it will just be a slow burn because of all the processes that exist already.
Forgot about that part.
Yeah. So the net is it's going to be the courts are going to have to decide is what's going on now, I guess.
For now.
Isn't it true most crypto companies are domiciled outside of the country? They're not even under U.S. law. Is that they're offshore?
A lot. There's a lot domiciled here too. I mean, we have clients that live, work in the U.S., Wyoming, Delaware, any of those states really that they're founded in. So people still do it. I think some people run that risk, and the cavalier cowboy crypto mindset takes supreme sometimes. But when you're working with funds and some of those people, like Daniel, you get those, those are the ones that mainly do go offshore, from what I see.
As far as the way funds are set up, it's mostly dual listed, right? So you'll have a US entity and then you'll have a Cayman entity. At FalconX, we had a Malta entity. I mean, we had entities all over the world. People trying to get to Singapore, they really can't. It takes forever there. You can get a VAR license in Dubai, I think fairly quickly. All you should do is put boots on the ground. So, I mean, it helps tremendously with operating businesses to be able to do that. But the net of it is, with, let's say, a third of crypto being held in the US, and as far as a wallet goes, we're basically, to opening the US up is opening up everything.
Right.
Yep, great comments, guys. And we can continue with more some of this in-depth back and forth on the legal front and so forth after, but we want to get over to Mickey, since he's our next speaker for this. So Chris, I'll let you go ahead and run into that, and then we'll get some questions in for Mickey.
Sure.
Really?
Well, I want to be conscientious of Jacob. Jacob, go ahead and ask your last question. Try to answer within a couple of minutes, and then I believe Mickey had a question, and then we will hop on to Mickey. We might run over a few minutes. Go ahead.
Sweet. Yeah, and then Mickey will do the next question. But I believe it was mentioned that you guys work for a family office. What is each of your roles there, and what have you learned from that experience? What are the key takeaways?
We're wealth strategists, and I mean, a lot of what we do is creating the blueprints of the estate plans. So, like, actually taking the potential client or client, seeing their not only financial picture, but financial and their whole family dynamics, just a worldview kind of how they see the world and what they need and what we know, and we put it together to form an estate plan at the end of the day that would be something that we do on the legal side.
Thank you. Mickey, did you have a question?
Yeah, just like super quickly, like obviously you guys do this because you like it. Have you ever been like reading a case in crypto, trying to like learn about precedent, and you're like, damn, this is straight out of a Netflix show, like the way that entities were set up and things were going? And if so, which one was that? Any stand out that I could look up? Because I think that stuff's super fascinating.
Not so that I can think of offhand, not any court cases, but I regularly get stuff in front of me that's what I do. Like, actually, I mean, it's every other day. I tell Mark, or I'll say, I cannot believe this. This is Chat GPT legal. Like, that's what this feels like. It reads like it came from Chat GPT. They say they have a company, but they really don't. It's stuff like that. It is some of it is incredible. Sure. You, Mark?
I mean, the easy answer is FTX is a fascinating story. Every time new tidbits comes out, that's a fascinating one. Not necessarily played out in courts or reading court cases, but that case in general is pretty fascinating. And I think our lives generally, and probably most people here, have Netflix episodes in their lives. Just dealing in crypto, and the people and the things that you're doing are just so unique, and you run into random situations that are just like, how did we get in this one spot right now?
And I'm pretty sure a lot of Netflix screenwriters are reading these cases and being creative to produce, the next documentary or something.
Sure.
Well,
Sure.
Thank you, Mark and Clayton, for joining us today. Can you please tell our audience where they can reach you at?
Yeah. So if you want to email either one of us, it's just our first names, Clayton or Mark, at theestateesq.com.
Yeah. And if there's any misspelling issues, Mark Ghatan, I'm the only one on LinkedIn. So it's pretty easy to not mistake that one.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's welcome our next speaker, Mickey Hardy. Welcome, Mickey.
Hello, hello.
Thank you for being here. Can you please take a moment to introduce yourself?
Yeah, cool. What's up, guys? So I run a company called Arcadia. We have a few subsidiaries, but that's basically our bread and butter. It's what we're known for. We've been around 3 years. Basically what we do, the high level TLDR, is we incubate Web3 brands from conception uh, to ideation to go to market to launch. We work with around 10 companies at once. We've really shifted from trying to become that marketing firm that just works with a ton of clients at once to really being an intimate service provider. And now, we're in an amazing position where we get to work with sovereign wealth funds in the Middle East regions. We get to work with massive layer one foundations and very large projects and helping them with their influencer marketing strategy, their go-to-market, helping them understand how to fundraise, and then at the end of the day, how to launch and list successfully. So that's what we've been up to for the last few years and just doing a lot of different cool Web3 things in parallel.
Thank you. Kenny?
Perfect. So, Mickey, I want to first start out with kind of just your personal story, because obviously this space, when we're talking about blockchain technologies, crypto, and these emerging technologies, it's a young market anyway. There's a lot of young blood here, but even among that young blood, you're very young, right? And you've been doing this, like you said, your company's been active for 3 years already. Can you give us a little bit of like what brought you in to the Web3 and the high level marketing that you do currently, and just like how did that story begin, and how did it kind of like pinnacle at Arcadia and what you guys are now?
Yeah, great question. Well, look, I mean, hindsight's always 2020, but I'm very fortunate to have a family that is very into entrepreneurship. Like a lot of failures, few successes. Like regardless, everyone in our family tries something, right? It's some type of business. So it's always been like really rooted in us from my DNA from the beginning was like, okay, in high school, I'm reselling sneakers, I'm reselling this, and that. I'm starting this business. I'm trying to make money here. And then my mind has sort of always been programmed to like very anti-traditional education system. And so when I got into college, I was like, okay, this flipping shoes, flipping sneakers, whatever, this is not sustainable. I need to start a legit business. And I've always had a proclivity and been drawn towards copywriting. That's like my thing is being able to persuade people through words and I guess, manipulate them in a good way, obviously, to get them to think what you want them to think, right? And so we started a copywriting agency, myself did. And when that became, I guess, enough to sort of, like pay for my expenses, I ended up dropping out. And then I got approached by a Web3 brand who was like, damn, this kid's pretty good at copywriting. And through that, entered the realm of Web3, got pretty lucky, angel invested into a few things. And then I was doing this copywriting gig in Web3, and everyone here is in crypto. This space is really gray hat. It's very transactional, and it's almost kind of sketch. There wasn't a McKinsey consulting of Web3, right? There wasn't someone who could get on a call like this, be professional facing, have proper data and analytics to back up go-to-market strategies. I was like, okay, light bulb. Let's start some type of firm that could be very client facing, work with Web2 brands, but also understand that like degenerative aspect of crypto that you need to be successful. So that's it's pretty much how I got here, man.
I love that. I love that, Mickey. I think obviously I'm quite a bit older than you, but we have very similar stories as far as our family and entrepreneurial background. I'd love to have some conversation about that at a later time. But Bob's got a question, and then Clayton. So Bob, why don't you go first, and then Clayton, you can jump on after.
Sure. So double clicking on that, Mickey, for a second. My wife is an old BBDO, old school advertising person, marketing person. So I was just wondering the difference between a Web3 kind of marketing approach and a kind of a Web2 marketing approach. Obviously, you're not doing like consumer packaged goods or stuff like that, but how do you approach that?
No, that's a good question. I actually forgot to mention that because basically when I was doing copywriting for these brands, we saw like a ton of Web2 companies. Like we worked with Sony and Samsung a bit in the beginning, and they were just dumping like tens of millions of dollars in the bull run, like Pico bull run, Euphoria. Let me spend like 10 million bucks on email marketing, ads, and SEO and see what happens in Web3. And it's like none of that works. It all looks like a scam. It comes across like very, very like scammy, right? You see a crypto ad, buy this crypto now. It's like, what's going on? So the beautiful thing about Web3 is that you can do everything organically. And CPM, like cost per thousand impressions, can be 90% cheaper than traditional Web2 marketing. And Web3, because you have the whole community aspect, you have an ability to like breed hundreds of thousands of people who have that early adopter mentality into a project who will just go to war for the brand, right? And it's like once you build that, it's a self-marketing flywheel. You don't need to keep pumping money into ads. You don't need to keep sending emails. You don't need to do your SEO. You have that loyal community, and sort of unlocking that is what we sell people. How do you build that community? And so I hope that answers your question. But yeah, Web2 tactics, that's the easiest way to like light money on fire. Yeah.
Beautiful. Clayton?
Yeah. So what is currently being in the industry you're in and having the clients you do, what is the hardest thing that you have to do on a daily basis for and with those clients? And would that change if your clients were in a different industry?
Oh gosh. Oh. Okay, so I think the hardest thing is that like founders are inherently very egocentric when it comes to their product. They know the ins and outs, right? They know every little caveat, they know every little detail, and they just assume that that information will be immediately extrapolated to everyone, right? And so we'll come to them, we'll be like, hey, look, I'm an outsider looking in. This is what I think about your product. This is how it needs to be presented. And they tell me, Mickey, this isn't right. Like this narrative isn't proper. I'm like, and we have to explain to them, you guys aren't the genius here. You hired us for a reason. These are the influencers. These are the strategies that we need to use. And so I think that is probably the biggest bottleneck with clients is them trying to tell us how to run marketing campaigns. If we were in a different industry other than crypto, how would it look? That's a good question. The issue with I'll tell you, in Web2, you can really hire an ads agency. You say, hey, I'll pay you $1,000. You get me 1 million impressions, and then we'll run the ad for you and we'll handle the copywriting. In Web3, success isn't as trackable, right? You can't really say like, oh, I've entered a point where I can launch a token. These are the metrics that it looks like. It's more so of like the community is ready, the market is ready. And I think that when you don't have those deliverables and you don't have those metrics that you can just say like, okay, checkbox done, success, it's a bit harder to sort of convey success to the client. So I don't know how to contextualize that into like an easy answer, but maybe that makes sense.
No, I love that answer, Mickey. And I think something really funny that kind of goes along with that in the development sphere in this space. We had a saying that we used to do with clients is that we would have packages, right? And the first package would be if we design everything that we're building, we'd be building an application or something. So if we design everything and we build everything and we launch everything, it's this price. And then there would be 2 or 3 others like, well, if you advise us on how to do this, then it's more expensive. And then at the very end is like, if you design, build it, and advise and do it all yourself, and we sit and watch, that's the most expensive of our packages, right? Because just highlighting that founders oftentimes in this space often think that they know best in every area and want you to do their ideas in every area. And so I feel that so deeply, Mickey. It's such a hard thing. Mark, I think you have a question. We'll let Mark go first, and then Jacob can jump in after.
Sure. Mickey, so you're pretty selective on your clients that you choose. I'm just wondering, what's that line? What do you look at to say, okay, this is a client that fits our criteria and this is a client that doesn't?
Yeah, I think it's sort of taking the end goal where we want to be and working backwards from that goal. And to achieve the goal of like Web3 hegemony, I guess you could say, is like you have to have a pristine reputation. That's so important. You burn your reputation once in Web3, you're pretty much going to be ostracized from the space forever, right? And so we wanted to select clients who we can enhance our reputation by working with them, that they can give us the means, the budget, the knowledge, the content necessary to make the campaign a success. So if they have those things, then we're more than happy to work with them.
All right, perfect. Jacob, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So this question's sort of a bit nuanced. I kind of want to zoom in, zoom out of the marketing, zoom into the personal development, business development, entrepreneurial world. I have, as Crystal mentioned, I've got like a reasonably sized audience, and a lot of them are, early stage entrepreneurs, as I've been documenting my entrepreneurial journey and struggles for the last 9 years. So there's a lot of young entrepreneurs watching, and I want to know, they look to you and they go, wow, this guy's like really successful in my eyes. And what are some of those sacrifices that you made in order to get to be sitting where you are today, doing the things that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, sacrifices looking on the inside, like from the outside looking in, I guess you call them sacrifices. To me, I love this. Like, this is all I'd want to be doing. But like college days, for example, right? There sacrifice pretty much 90% of my social life. No going out. Fridays are at home on meetings with people in Hong Kong very late at night, when they wake up. So I think that was that would probably be a big thing on the outside perspective, looking in, was sort of like sacrificing the social aspect of things. And that's probably it. Because like I really can't, I enjoy this, right? I love it, man. I don't look at it as sacrifices. I look at it as this is what I should be doing.
And thank you.
Yeah, dude.
Just really quickly from my side, Mickey, would you say that your firm is really built on building brands that have a retail focus to it? Or do you work with clients in a more nuanced, like, let's say that the company is trying to attract specifically high net or institutional investment?
That's a really good question. I would say both. I would say that we're more known for our retail side of things, right? Because that's where you have a big viral marketing flywheel where you can connect with like, hundreds of millions of people, and we're doing like airdrops to people, and I have people calling and be like, Mickey, your airdrop paid for my dad's chemotherapy. And it's like great. It's like everyone knows about this, sort of what we're known for. But the institutional side of things, I think that's where it gets really exciting. Like we're working with, I can't name who, but a sovereign wealth fund, and helping them like advise them on how to deploy their capital. And that's insane. Like to me, like to be able to work with guys like that and know the people they know and access their network, that's just as, meaningful to me. So yeah, both, but we're known for one more than the other, for sure.
Excellent. Good to know.
Yeah.
All right, Bob, do you want to go ahead and jump in real quick?
Yeah, the sovereign wealth company, you could send them this way if you want. Just kidding. So one of the things I find this extremely fascinating. Thanks for sharing. So who do you think should be using you more? What vertical within Web3 should be using you guys more? Because one thing you touched on earlier is founders can't even explain what their company does if you gave them 30 seconds, which is so funny, and I totally agree. But who do you think? Is it gaming? Is it finance? Is it who should be using you guys?
Yeah, I think the criteria of people is probably that really Web2 focused team. And I'll give an example, but I won't name names. We were talking to this gaming company, and they were basically like Web2 cabal, right? Like nothing wrong with going to Stanford, but all the guys were Stanford grads. They launched this amazing, Web2 brand, and they raised $350 million from A16Z, and they're building a Web2 mobile app that has tens of millions of, recurring users, right? Like incredible team, literally the Avengers, right? They come into Web3 and they want to develop a game and launch a token. Well, they raised $350 million. Who knows what the evaluation post money, 1.52 billion maybe. And they launched their token, no community, no like Web3 influencers, and the token is worth less than the amount of money that they raised, right? The market cap is, and a huge L for investors. And so it's like, those Web2 people, brilliant, talented, genius, game with 10 million. It's on the App Store and you would know the game. Like all of us would know the game. But there just wasn't that translation from Web2, tangibility to like Web3 value. You know what I mean? And so I feel like that those are the brands that could probably use this the best. And honestly, we like to help them because it's pretty unfortunate outcome, but room for upside for sure.
Appreciate that, guys. Okay, we're coming to the end here, and I know there's plenty more questions that we could ask. Like I said, I really enjoy speaking with Mickey, and here's just I was being very diplomatic in some of just the questioning and stuff. And thank you all for I think almost everybody in here had some sort of question to filter for Mickey, so appreciate that, guys. Obviously, one of my companies has a great relationship with Mickey and Arcadia. He's one of the most professional guys I've ever dealt with in this space, and that's that's saying a lot because we deal with a lot of people that have been around for a decade or two and really know their chops. And Mickey being as young and yet as successful and enthusiastic as he is, he's a great guy to work with. So anyone that's out there listening that is in the position of a founder or a major equity investor, and they're looking for a good solution to help with their branding, their marketing, to help bring their audience, that audience, or even identify what their audience is. Mickey and Arcadia is a great place to do that. So Mickey, why don't you tell everybody how they can get more information about Arcadia, how they can personally contact you if either they or a referral of theirs has a need for the services of Arcadia, and just give us a quick rundown of how they can do that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, that was incredibly kind, Kenneth. If you ever, leave NC and are looking for a sales position, our Arcadia will definitely bring you on. I think you explained us better than I probably can. But no, so I think there's like a bunch of different LinkedIn links on this live stream, but arcadiamarketing.io is our firm. And yeah, on Twitter, I'm pretty vocal, but that's all attached to my LinkedIn. So yeah, feel free to reach out if anyone needs anything, influencers, whatever, free of charge. We'll just point you guys in the right direction.
Beautiful. And might I mention one other thing? Because Mickey, I think a lot of times these guys that are very high level and that are just, down in the trenches all the time, I think they sell themselves a little bit short. One thing I will say, in a space where probably 90% of the providers and the even the projects are very predatory, and it's always, sell you something, sell you something, sell you something, instead of work together. I have seen Mickey spend his very valuable time in making connections for free, not asking anything for it, in saying, hey, listen, I know someone that might be able to help you with this, and setting up a meeting or doing this and that. And that is immensely valuable. I don't know. There's people here that's been in the space for a long time, like myself, and people that are just new into it. But you will learn, if you haven't been in a while, that those people and those organizations that have that type of leadership are very few and far between, those kind of people you want to work with. So Mickey, appreciate it so much. Please, anyone that's listening, take your time to look into Arcadia and some of the great work that they're doing. And then everyone else here, all of the different guests and speakers that we've had, super interesting, great show. I think I would go ahead and let Alan, call on Alan right now to close us all off in a prayer, and we'll end in the podcast here. So appreciate everyone. Thank you, Alan.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining another week for Crypto Canaverse. Let's bow our heads and pray. Dear God, thank you so much for amazing and also great people to share about what they're passionate about, and the projects they're working for, the DSVs, the Arcadia, the estate, all in conjunction. You're doing great things for the community, but most importantly, contributing to this technology that we know it's created by you, God. So continue to protect us in all things that we do, as well as connect the missing puzzle pieces that we need, whether it is capital, whether it is an introduction. Let's all work together to do things that will glorify you. So I pray for this weekend that you be with us. In Christ and Jesus' name we pray. Amen.